I've always believed that the camera never lies, but it doesn't always tell the whole truth either. Behind every frame, there's a story you can't see. Sometimes it's heartbreak. Sometimes lust. Sometimes it's something darker. I learned that the hard way, the day Ava walked into my studio, rain-soaked, breathless, and looking like a sin wrapped in silk. That day, something shifted in me. Not just the way I looked through my lens, but something much deeper, like a wire in my chest had snapped. And I knew without understanding why that my life wasn't going to be the same after her. It was late afternoon. One of those damp Toronto Thursdays when the city feels like it's been crying all day. I was packing up, thinking I'd call it early, maybe stop by the bakery on Queen for a coffee and some solitude. Then the door swung open with a gust of wind and the smell of pavement and perfume. She stood there with a hesitant smile and a folder clutched to her chest. Her coat clung to her curves, raindrops trailing down the sleeves, her hair pulled up in this loose, almost careless bun. And those eyes green sharp to knowing cut through me before she even said a word. "I'm Ava," she said, like it explained everything. "I was wondering if you had time for a quick shoot." I almost laughed. No model shows up unbooked and gets lucky, not unless it's a setup. But there was something about her. Maybe it was the way she didn't wait for permission, just stepped in like she belonged there. Maybe it was how her voice trembled ever so slightly behind all that confidence. Or maybe it was the part of me that had been waiting for someone to snap me out of the monotony of work and one-night stands and shutter clicks. She showed me a few pictures, said she needed something a little more intimate. For her portfolio, sensual but tasteful, she added with a smile that lingered too long on my mouth. I tried to keep it professional. I told her the rates, offered a plain white backdrop, gave her the usual rundown. But Ava wasn't interested. In usual, we started slow. She changed in the dressing room, came out in this barely there slip. The color of champagne, thin straps falling down her arms like an invitation. She didn't need much direction. Skang. She moved like she knew how her body looked in light. How to angle her hips, when to part her lips. Every time I clicked the shutter, she gave me something different, something raw. And then she said it, just one more pose. She walked over to the velvet chaise near the window where the afternoon light spilled across the floor in soft gold. She draped herself across it like a dream, one leg bent, her arm lazily stretched over the edge, head tilted just so. But it wasn't her pose that shook me, it was her expression. Like she wasn't performing anymore. Like she wanted me to. Seer, I lowered the camera. That moment stretched heavy, humming with something electric. Her eyes didn't leave mine. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. And when she said, "Is this what you want?" I knew she wasn't talking about the photo anymore. I should have stepped back, picked up the camera, kept the line between subject and artist clear. I always did, till her. Instead, I crossed the space between us and touched her shoulder under. The strap that had started to slide down, her skin was warm. Goosebumps bloomed beneath my fingers. She didn't move away. She leaned into it. "You're shaking," I whispered. "Maybe I'm just cold," she said. Even though we both knew better, I kissed her. It was soft at first, uncertain. Her lips tasted like mint and adrenaline. But when her hands reached under my shirt, everything fell away. The camera, the studio, the rules. We didn't even make it to the couch. We made love right there on the floor, rushed, messy, desperate. It felt like falling through space and time, like every touch was trying to memorize the other. Afterwards, she lay against me, her hair tangled over my chest, fingers drawing lazy circles on my skin. We didn't speak for a long time. The silence wasn't aqueduct, was thick with understanding, like we'd both admitted something wordless and true. I should have told her it was a mistake, that this couldn't happen again. But instead, I whispered, "When can I see you next?" And she smiled, that sly, knowing curve of her mouth that would later come to haunt me, and said, "Next week, same time, I have a few more poses in mind." That was the start of it. The beginning of a story that would unravel everything I thought I knew about passion. Betrayal. And the lies we tell ourselves when we want someone too badly to stop the camera. Doesn't lie, but it can't see what's coming next. And neither could I. I kept telling myself it was just the one time. A moment of weakness. A line crossed in the haze of lust and loneliness. I even washed the sheets the next morning, like that would somehow erase her scent from the room or my mind. But Ava stayed with me, in my thoughts. In the way I started re-editing her photos, zooming in on her eyes, her mouth. As if they were whispering secrets I hadn't caught in real life, I tried to keep working, tried to fall back into routine, but every client felt flat after her. Every model dull. No one lingered in the room the way she did. And so when she messaged a week later, simply saying, "Still up for round 2?" My fingers answered yes before my brain even caught up. She arrived that evening wearing leather, boots, and a black dress that clung to her like sign. Her hair was loose this time, wavy and wild. She looked even more dangerous than before. I tried to keep the camera between us, tried to focus on the job. But the tension was already thick, simmering under our skin, like we'd both been holding our breath. All week. We shot in silence at first. It's just the soft click of the shutter and the hum of low music playing in the background. She posed against the backdrop like she owned the air in the room. There was a new confidence in her movements, a certain deliberate slowness that felt like it was meant just for me. She was baiting me, and I let myself be caught. The moment came again when the silk strap slipped off her shoulder. It was subtle, like an accident, but I knew better. I walked over to adjust it, but my hand lingered. Her skin was warm, and I could feel her pulse under my fingers. She tilted her face up to mine, her lips just inches from my mouth. "You can fix it?" she whispered, voice barely audible over the music. I didn't know if she meant the strap or something more. The camera hit the floor with a soft thud dot this time. It wasn't rushed. It was slow and hungry and unbearably intimate. We undressed each other like we were peeling back more than just fabric layers of something unspoken, something risky. The studio lights cast shadows that danced across the walls while we moved. And every breath, every touch, felt like we were stepping deeper into something we couldn't undo afterwards. We didn't talk much. So we lay curled on the couch wrapped in one of my button-downs, watching me as I sat on the edge of the chaise, trying to slow my racing heart. She looked so content, like she'd found exactly where she belonged. She asked about my work, my life, how I got into photography. I told her about growing up outside of Ottawa, my mom giving me her old Canon at 15, and how I never looked back. She listened with her chin propped on her knees, smiling like she knew something about me that I hadn't said out loud. Over the next few weeks, it became our ritual. Every Thursday, Ava would come to the studio, always in something new, sometimes lace, sometimes leather. She'd pose, tease, laugh, then melt into my arms by the end of the night. It was never just sex, it was something deeper, even though we never said the words. She told me little pieces of herself, how she moved to the city at 19. How she hated elevators, how she couldn't sleep unless music was playing. But there were also things she didn't say, like where she went when she left. Or why her. Mood would sometimes shift without warning. One night, I noticed a faint bruise on her wrist. It was the color of old wine, hidden under her sleeve. But when I reached for it, she flinched. "It's nothing," she said quickly. "Just clumsy." Her voice was light, but her eyes weren't. I didn't press. I didn't want to ruin what we had by pushing too hard. But that was the moment I felt something shift. A cold wind under all the heat. I started canceling other clients just to have more time with her. My friends noticed. So did my bank account. I didn't care. I was addicted. Every Thursday, I watched the clock like a teenager, nervous and desperate for her to walk through the door. She became my obsession, not just her body, but her being. The way she looked at me, the secrets I thought I was slowly unlocking, but the truth was, I was only seeing the parts she wanted me to see. And the more I tried to hold on to her, the more I began to sense she was slipping through my fingers like smoke, or something just out of focus. I told myself she needed me, that I was the safe place she came to when the world got too loud. But deep down, some small voice kept whispering, "You don't know her. Not really." Still, I held on, because every time she looked at me through the lens with that half smile, every time she said, "Just one more pose," I believed her. I believed we were building something, but I didn't realize yet that I wasn't the one doing the capturing. I was the one being framed. Sometimes the smallest things crack everything open. It's a forgotten object, a single text. It's one quiet moment when the mask slips and the truth edges in like a cold draft through a closed window. For me, it was Ava's phone left on the corner of my editing desk like it was just another prop. I didn't mean to look. Honestly, I didn't. But it lit up with a sharp buzz as I was cropping a shot of her laughing from the week before. And my eyes flicked to the screen without thinking. "Dinner's at 7. Don't make me call your sister again, Z." That was the message. Short, sharp, possessive. My gut clenched. It's a kind of clench you feel before you even fully understand what it means. My hand hovered over the screen. I should have left it. I should have respected her privacy. But something inside me wasn't curiosity. It was fear pushed me to swipe. The thread was long. Dozens of messages from the same number. Some just hours apart. Some were angry. "I know where you are. Answer me or I'll come find you." Others were apologetic, twisted into sweet nothings, wrapped in control. "You know I love you, Ava. We're better together. We always were." I scrolled up, my heart hammering in my chest, and realized this wasn't some random admirer. This was someone who knew her deeply. Someone who had access. Someone she hadn't cut off. I suddenly realized I didn't know anything about Ava. Not really. I knew her lips, her scent. It's the way her eyes softened right before she came, but not the world she came from. Not what haunted her in the spaces between our Thursdays. When she walked into the studio later that evening, humming to herself, something inside me cracked. I didn't wait. "Who's Z?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. She froze mid-step. The hum died in her throat. I saw her eyes flicker to the phone on the desk. "You went through my stuff?" she asked. Not angry, not surprised, just tired, like she'd been waiting for this moment. "It lit up," I said. "I saw the message, and then I saw the others." "So who is he?" She sat on the chaise, the same one she'd turned into a confessional. A bedroom, a stagehand, rubbed her temples like the truth was a migraine. "His name's Zach," she said quietly. "He used to be my agent. We were involved." Lot of ways, the word involved made my skin crawl. "Was he abusive?" I asked. She didn't nod. Didn't shake her head either. Just stared at the floor. "It wasn't black and white. He helped build my career. Got me work when no one else would. But it came with expectations, control, guilt, threats." Her voice cracked on that last word. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Us." "Because I didn't want to drag you into it," she said. "Okay, because once you're in his world, you don't just get to walk away. He knows things about me, personal things, compromising things. If he wanted to ruin me, he could." Her voice was a whisper now. My instinct was to reach for her, to tell her I'd protect her, that I'd go to the police, that I'd expose the bastard. But she shook her head, already reading my thoughts. "It's not that simple, Will. He's careful, connected, and if I push too hard, he doesn't go after me. He goes after the people around me." Something shifted in me then. I wasn't just in love with Ava. I felt responsible for her. Like I was her last lifeline. And if I let go, she'd drown in something much bigger than either of us. So I did the only thing I could. I made a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. "He won't touch you again," I said. "I won't let him." She looked at me, really looked at me, and there was something like sorrow behind her eyes. Not doubt in me, but in the world we were trying to survive. After that night, things changed. There was still heat between us, maybe, even more than before, but it was tinged with urgency, desperation, like we both knew the clock was ticking on whatever this was. She started sleeping over more, but she never stayed past sunrise. I kept her bag packed, her phone close. Once I asked her why she didn't just change her number. She laughed bitterly. Zach doesn't need my number to find me. I started noticing other things too. A black car parked across the street more than once. A shadow at the edge of the block when I walked her out. I asked her about it. She just said he's reminding me he still exists. And yet, even with all the fear and the secrets and the paranoia, I loved her. Maybe more because of it. Ava wasn't just a woman to me anymore. She was a world I'd stumbled into, filled with pain and mystery and impossible beauty, and I didn't care how deep it went. I wanted all of her. Every broken piece, every late-night whisper, every lie even, because by then I was too far in to walk away. What I didn't realize was that love, when built on secrets, isn't a sanctuary. It's a trap. And the deeper I loved her, the tighter the noose became. Then, shadows weren't just between us anymore. They were wrapping around us, waiting to pull us both under. Asterisk, the flash of the camera used to mean something to meal-like clarity, truth frozen in a frame. But by the time we reached that cold January night, it felt like fire, like something dangerous that burned instead of revealed. Ava had been staying over more often, though she never called it living together. Her things had quietly taken over drawers. A toothbrush, stockings hung over my bathroom radiator. Her perfume clinging to my pillows. She was everywhere. And yet never quite mine. She moved through my world like she was always just passing through. Her eyes rarely stayed in one place. Her smile flickered like a warning light I kept ignoring. It was on a Friday. When she first brought it up, the idea for something permanent. A photo series. Intimate, raw, maybe even a little scandalous. Ava uncovered, she called it, smirking. Let's show people the real me, not the carefully posed, filtered model crap. She said she wanted to take control of her image. Reclaim it from all the hands that had twisted its sack. The industry, the men who treated her like a body on a backdrop. I loved the idea, and I loved her for trusting me with it. So we started that night. I changed the lighting, lowered the tone. Black and white, grainy, real. Just her, a chair, and nothing else. It was the most vulnerable I'd ever seen her. No makeup, hair loose. A scar I'd never noticed before visible beneath her ribs, her eyes softer than I'd seen in weeks. But what made the shoot electric wasn't how she looked. It was what she let me see. The tremble in her fingers, the hesitation before a smile. The way she looked into the lens like she was searching for something. And with every click, I fell harder. This wasn't lust anymore. This was love in its most dangerous form, consuming. Blinding, irreversible. After we finished, she curled up beside me on the floor, the camera still warm in my hand. If anything ever happens, she whispered, voice barely audible, promise me you'll take care of them. I blinked. Them. She pulled back slightly, eyes suddenly alert, too sharp for the moment. The photos, she said quickly. This series, you'll finish it. I'll show people who I really was. Was the word hit like ice water down my spine? I turned to face her fully. Ava, what are you not telling me? She looked at me for a long time, and then her walls went up again, like a curtain falling at the end of a scene. Nothing. Just thinking out loud. Ignore me. But I couldn't. Not anymore. I'd ignored too many signs already. The late night. Phone calls she took on the balcony. The envelope I once saw her stuff deep into her coat, marked with a logo I didn't recognize. The way she flinched at shadows, locked every window like she expected someone to crawl through. So I followed her the next day. I know. I hated myself for it even while I was doing it. I had to know. Had to pull the curtain back and see what kind of world she really walked through when she wasn't posing in front of my lens. She left early, said she had errands. She kissed me lightly, too lightly, and walked out in a hurry. I waited 10 minutes, then grabbed my jacket and took the side exit. She didn't go to any store, no salon, no gym. She walked 4 blocks and entered an apartment building I'd never seen before. Old Gray Anonymous. I waited across the street, hands freezing in my pockets, heart pounding like I was about to shoot a war zone. She was inside for an hour. When she came out, she wasn't alone, Zach. I didn't need to be introduced to know it was him. Tall, sharp, suit, sunglasses despite the overcast sky. He walked beside her too close, a hand on her lower back. Her face was unreadable. Not afraid, not quite neutral either. They talked. She laughed once, but it was a small, broken thing. And then he kissed her right there. On the mouth. She didn't push him away. She didn't flinch. She let it happen. I backed away like I'd been hit, heart thrashing so hard I thought I might vomit. I walked fast, then faster, until I was back at the studio, where the world still smelled like her perfume and the walls still echoed with her moans. I collapsed into the chair, hands shaking, brain refusing to compute what I'd seen. Was she using me? Was this a game? Or was she trapped in something so deep she couldn't see the surface anymore? When she came back that evening, she didn't mention where she'd been, acted like nothing had happened, kissed me, undressed in front of me like it was any other night. But when I touched her, I felt it distance. It's like her body was there, but her mind was back in that gray building. It's with him. I didn't confront her. Not then. I just held her tighter, as if my arms could force the truth out of her. She whispered, "You're all I have." And it sounded like both a confession and a lie. I knew now that there were 2 versions of Ava. The one who let me photograph her soul, and the one who disappeared into rooms with locked doors and old ghosts. And somehow, I loved both of them. But one of them was going to destroy me. Maybe both. Asterisk, it all unraveled faster than I ever imagined. The illusion, the safety, the fragile hope I had that real reckless love could save someone. I kept trying to convince myself there had to be a reason she let Zach kiss her. Maybe she was pretending, manipulating him to keep him off her back. Maybe it was part of some desperate survival strategy. But no matter how I spun it, the truth festered under my skin. She didn't pull away. And that image, her lips on his, her hand resting on his chest like it belonged, there haunted me every time I closed my eyes still. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to. God, I wanted to scream, demand answers, shake the truth out of her. But part of me was afraid of what she'd say, afraid she'd lie again, or worse, tell me it was all true. So I buried myself in the photos, stayed up late night after night editing the AVA Uncovered series. Not just because she'd asked me to finish it, but because I needed proof that the woman I'd fallen in love with was real. That the way she looked at me through the lens, that soft, vulnerable Ike, meant something that I hadn't imagined. The entire thing. The photos were devastating, honest, raw. The kind of work I'd spent my whole career chasing but never quite touching. I cried the first time I exported the final set. Not just because they were beautiful, but because I could feel her slipping away in every frame. It felt like a goodbye. And maybe that's why I did it. Maybe that's why I sent them to the gallery. I hadn't even told her yet. It was impulsive, I know. But the curator had been chasing me for months for something original, something intimate. I'd always held back. But with Ava, I couldn't anymore. She was my muse, my undoing, and I wanted the world to see. I titled this series The Truth, In Her Silence. I told myself it was art, that she'd understand, that it was for both of us. I was wrong. She found out before I could tell her. A friend of hers saw the promo flyer the gallery posted online. Black and white, her face half in shadow, lips parted, a single tear barely visible on her cheek. a photo I never meant to be public. The next thing I knew, she stormed into the studio like a firestorm. Her hair wild, her coat soaked with rain, mascara smudged like war paint. "You had no right," she said, voice low and trembling. "You promised me those were just for us." I stood there stunned, guilt choking my throat. "Ava, there." "You?" I said. "Not the version the world painted, but the real one, the strong one, the one who let me in." But she wasn't listening. She was spiraling, pacing, tearing down prints I had hung in quiet pride. "You think you know me. You think this?" She held up one of the framed shots like it was filth. "Tells the truth." "You don't even know what I've done." Then that was when it all came out. She told me everything. Not just about Zach, but about the modeling gigs she never mentioned. The ones that paid under the table. The escort work, years ago, before she got clean. The favors she traded to get into the industry. How she still owed him. Not just money, but silence. And how the moment those photos hit the internet, Zach would retaliate. Hard. "He owns the rights to my early work," she said, sobbing now. "He'll sue, he'll leak things. He'll ruin you just to remind me that I belong to him." I tried to touch her, but she flinched like I was another man who wanted something. And it broke me. She wasn't just angry, she was terrified. Not for herself, but for me. "I didn't do this to hurt you," I whispered. "I did it because I love you." She laughed through her tears. "Then you should have protected me, not exposed me." The next day, she was gone. No note. Text. Her things disappeared like smoke vanished from my drawers, my shelves, my sheets. She even deleted our messages, wiped herself from my phone like a ghost who never existed. The gallery called the day after. They said they received a cease and desist from a law firm tied to her former agency, threatening to sue for defamation, copyright infringement, emotional damages. The exhibit was pulled before it ever opened. I didn't fight it. What was there left to fight for? The studio felt empty in a way I didn't know was possible, like she'd taken the air with her. I tried to keep working to photograph other people, but every face blurred into hers. No one laughed the way she did. No one cried so honestly. No one made me feel anything. Weeks passed. Then one night I found a USB drive in my mailbox. No note, no name. Just the device tucked in a plain white envelope. I knew it was from her the moment I saw the handwriting. On the label, "One last pose." My hands trembled as I plugged it in, and what I found on it would change everything again. Asterisk the USB word to life. And for a second, I just stared at the empty folder it contained, heart racing, breath shallow. Then a single file appeared. Ava_final.mov. My hands hovered over the trackpad, unwilling to click, because something in my gut already knew this wasn't just a video. This was a confession, a goodbye or worse. I clicked it anyway, because how could I not? Her face filled the screen, pixelated for half a second before sharpening into the Ava I hadn't seen in weeks. Her eyes tired but calm. No makeup. Hair pulled into a loose braid over one shoulder. She wore a faded hoodie Minin sat in. The same corner of the studio where we'd once made love on a rain-soaked afternoon. She looked straight into the lens, into me. If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. Maybe not forever. Maybe just for good. She took a shaky breath. I wanted to explain. Not because I owe you, but because I loved you. I still do. But I knew what would happen the second you put those photos out into the world. You gave me something beautiful, Will. Something pure. But I'm not pure. I never was. Her voice cracked. But she kept going. Zach's not just a bitter ex or some predator lurking in my past. He's part of something bigger, uglier. He launders reputations, buries scandals, builds careers from silence and secrets. And mine's a gold mine. Of leverage. That's why I could never just walk away. I had to play the part, smile when he called, show up when he summoned me. Sometimes, yeah, I let him kiss me. Because if I didn't, he'd come after you. I felt like the room was spinning. Ava wiped her eyes, smearing a tear down her cheek. When you submitted those photos, I panicked. Not because they weren't beautiful, they were, but because they exposed me in ways he warned me never to allow. Vulnerability is dangerous when someone's holding a knife behind your back. I didn't want to disappear on you, Will. I had to, because you don't understand how far he'd go. How many people he owns. She paused then, folding her hands in her lap like she needed something to hold. But I'm not running anymore. Not really. I found someone, an old client of his. Someone he burned worse than me. We're working on something. Quiet, legal. Real. We're building a case. A reckoning. And if it works, maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to breathe again. That was when her face changed just slightly. A small, sad smile tugged at her mouth. I'm not asking you to wait for me. That wouldn't be fair. But I wanted you to know. Those nights with you, that studio, that light you wrapped me in. That was real. More real than anything I've ever had. You didn't save me. I didn't want saving. But you saw me, and I'll never forget that. The screen faded to black, and I sat there frozen, tears drying on my face. She wasn't gone in the way I feared, dead, destroyed, lost to darkness. No, Ava was fighting. Somewhere out there, she was finally standing up to the man who tried to own her. But she was doing it without me. The next day, I didn't go to the studio. I didn't answer calls from the gallery. I didn't open emails threatening legal action. I just walked through the city Ava once, made beautiful for me, half expecting to see her reflection in every window. That night, I pulled out the camera we'd used for the Ava Uncovered series. I went through every image, each frame. A heartbeat, a truth, a wound. And then I opened a new project file. Title, What She Left Behind. The exhibit would never show in the gallery. I knew that now. But it didn't matter. This wasn't for them. This was for me. For her. A record of what love looks like when it burns hot enough to melt chains. A love story with scars and betrayal, and truth so sharp it bled. In the weeks that followed, I saw signs she was still out there. A coded email sent from a throwaway account, just a link to an anonymous article about an internal investigation into her former agency. An envelope slipped under my door with a Polaroid inside, her standing on a hilltop, wind in her hair, flipping the camera off with a grin that could stop time. No note, no return address, just that one perfect image. I started photographing again. Not models, not staged shoots, real people. Women who had survived things. Women who were still fighting. Ava had opened something in me, a hunger to tell the stories no one wanted to see. The ones that didn't come with soft lighting and happy endings. But sometimes, when the studio is quiet and the sun slants just right through the skylight, I imagine her walking back in. No explanation. No apology. Just Ava standing in that golden haze, whispering just one more pose. And maybe I'd say yes. Maybe I wouldn't even need to, because some loves don't end. They echo. They haunt. They live in the places you can't pack up or delete. In the flash of a shutter. In a photograph too honest to forget. She said, just one more pose. But the flash wasn't the only thing that burned. I still feel it now, and I always will.